I can't be nervous. I even watched Alex yesterday. He sort of sets the standard, and I'm glad he's not in the front row heckling at me. I'm Bridget Snedden, Alex's mum. I'll tell you a little bit about me. Alex isn't the only member in our family, and certainly isn't treated as the only member. We have a daughter, Amy, who is in her mid-30s, and a younger son, Tim, who's 23. Alex and Tim in particular are very close, and both of them have always ganged up on their big sister. And now the three of them are just three young, wonderful people. And I'm married to Gary, and have been together now for 30 years, which sounds like a prison sentence, but it's not. I think we've been very blessed, actually, because we've had some pretty big challenges in our way, and Gary and I have always been on the same page when it comes to bringing up our children, and in particular, being clear about where we were going with for Alex. When Alex was a baby, he was the most gorgeous little boy, and we just stimulated him until it was I was almost manic about it. Tim came along when Alex was about 19 months, and I was determined to get Alex walking. He almost did, but it just sort of gives you some idea of the intense focus that I put on Alex's life as a very young child, because where we were heading was the vision that we held for him in adult life. At preschool, that picture there of Alex at preschool, the day after that photo was taken, he was expelled from our local preschool. And he was expelled. I got a phone call. No, Alex was actually 2.5 there, and dropped him off at the little preschool. He'd only been there for 2 or 3 days, and I got a phone call from the director, and she said, Bridget, and I've heard this tone for the past 25 years, and she said, we can't have Alex anymore. He won't be able to come. And I said, why is that? And it was because he was sitting on the table and throwing buttons around. Of course, no other children do that. And so I went and picked him up. I was devastated. I rang our local special education service, and at that time they provided you with information on other preschools. And that's all they did. She wasn't interested in listening to me, and her first name was Helen. And Gary and I that was the first time that we realised how society really viewed our beautiful little boy with glasses. And we couldn't do anything for 2 weeks. We were just absolutely, it was the stuff that gets to the core of your soul. However, it also made us stronger, because we were even more determined to shift, excuse the language, to shift the shit out of the way so that Alex would lead a very good life and be the man he is today. So school came along, and again it was, we don't take children like that at this school. And so we went to a funeral at a Catholic primary school, and one of the students there had passed away. And the wee girl who had passed away, I was involved in a number of in advocacy with her parents, and the principal at the time, or acting principal, came up to me after the funeral and said, hey, does the kid want to come to school here? Because we had been in the news, and I was shifting everything out of the way to make it quite clear that this wasn't acceptable. So he'd heard about us, and this acting principal, his name was Mark, and I'm saying this because you'll hear through the presentation, what happens with those sort of relationships. Alex did go to the school. He started there 3 weeks later. By now he was almost 6, and I know at first I said, no, he's not coming here. No, we want him to go to our local school. And Mark had said, does the kid want to play rugby? He can play rugby if you don't come here. Anyway, so it's, So I went home that night, told Gary about what this guy had said, and Gary rang him the next day, and Alex started a few weeks later. Mark and his family have become our closest friends over the past 20 years, and he was a huge advocate throughout Alex's primary school years. College, Alex was the first person with Down syndrome to go to Sacred Heart College, which is a large Catholic college in Auckland. But he was the first of 4 generations of Sneddons, and that's really important. That was, where all the Snedden men have been educated. And when they had when they'd come to the primary school and had an evening of, selling Sacred Heart, send your children here, I'd asked a number of questions, and I knew the woman who was running it was going to go back to the principal and say, and who's that lady? And he said to her, she's Bridget Snedden. And so it was just, Alex was absolutely accepted at the school because of those very strong ties. However, school life wasn't perfect, and as Alex has showed you, there were some fabulous things that occurred, and there were some not so great things that happened, and I think loneliness and isolation was the biggest things. He was getting a reasonable education, but there were certainly some things that were happening where the principal wouldn't act on it, when I would go, look, these things can't keep occurring, and the principal would say, I can't make the teachers do such and such. Anyway, would have been about 4 years later, and he had his own baby with Down syndrome, and his wife rang me and said, we know exactly how we need to be, Bridget, And one of Alex's teacher's aide she was a wonderful teacher aide, and she also had a baby with Down syndrome, and which was just really interesting. They soon changed their attitudes around him. So the why did we choose it was really, well, why not? Ordinarily, what would we have done? We had a very strong vision of Alex, and that vision is who he is today, and a bit more, which we didn't have. Some of the key steps that we went through was around having a very clear vision and holding on tight to that. Intentional networks, and I'm going to use that language, not circles of support. We've actually had 3 circles around Alex, and I'll go into talk about that a little later. Planning, anything worth doing is worth planning for and planning a little bit more for. And setting up the safeguards and always having plan B. Just safeguarding everything that we put in place. There was something else through it. A family governed arrangement. I've never been interested in managing any of my children's life, even though I'm a control freak. I don't want to manage their life, and I'm very conscious of stepping right back out of, and particularly Alex's life, of just stepping right away. And then one of it is, arranging the funding, and the funding very much came last. So the things that Alex wanted and what we wanted were pretty much, well, mostly the same. We had talked about Alex going flatting for a long time, and 6 months before Alex left home, or we left home and went flatting, Alex said to me, "Mum, no more talking, just do action." And he walked out of the room, and I thought, well, I said to Gary, if we don't actually do something, then he's not going to trust us. And we had built up, for our children, I think we had built up a relationship of absolute trust. They knew they know we are there for them no matter what. And so we had to take action. For us, we wanted to find the courage to move forward and do the right thing by Alex. I was one of the families, lucky families, that went to Canada with Joe and Anita and Maureen, and when I came back, we had a champs meeting, and I said, "Oh, Alex can leave home now. I'm ready," because I also know that nothing was going to happen in our family until I'm actually ready to let it happen. So they were all really relieved. Alex really wanted flatmates who respected him. And he has a very clear understanding of what respect looks like, smells like, sounds like. And, as would be expected, that's what we also wanted. He was very clear that he didn't want any support workers, but he knew very well that he wanted, that he needed help. We wanted to govern the arrangement, like I said, and we weren't interested in being managers. And it would have fallen onto me. I just wanted to be mum. And Gary just had, we have a really busy life that we didn't want to actually end up, being the managers of whatever arrangement we were setting up. Alex wanted young people, a young circle of support, and he wanted to, sack the old champs. We wanted a circle to put in there to safeguard, a safeguard against loneliness, and because, it's relationships that actually keep Alex safe. Alex wanted to be close to mum and dad, and we wanted to, a not negotiable of being no more than 5 minutes drive from wherever we lived. I'd never run in there. I think it's Marg Ward used to say 5 minutes pajama running distance? Well, no. I have kind of figured out what we might do in an earthquake or things like that. I reckon I could fly. Alex was made it very clear he wanted to be in charge of his life. And we wanted him to have control over who he lived with. As you would have noticed yesterday, Alex is very clear about what's important to him. And I was saying to someone last night, everyone has a speechwriter, even the Prime Minister. Now, although I might have written down, if it had been wrong in something that Alex doesn't believe in or done, he just wouldn't wear it. So being in charge of everything, not of his life, not just some of the things in his life. Alex, the church, the gym, the bus, the train, and everything else familiar to him was really important, particularly his church. We're just a pretty normal, I call a pretty average Catholic family. Alex has a very strong, deep commitment to his faith. And as a family, we absolutely respect that and have made sure that he can get to and from his church. In fact, he's got people picking him up. He rings up a neighbour and says, and pick me up to take to 5 o'clock, or he walks to church far too early sometimes, I think, and someone will say, "Oh, Alex, you're on your own, we'll take you home." So if we step away, if we were there all the time, they wouldn't do that. So that's just been a really lovely sort of natural occurring relationships. We really wanted Alex to live in the community that he was known best, and where others knew him as well. You know, there's lots of people around. If things go wrong, then I know someone is going to give us a call. There have been some pretty, there was an incident with, with what do you call them, fundraisers on the street who signed him up and shouldn't have, and took sort of advantage of his disability. However, that got dealt with. Alex wanted just ordinary flatmates. He didn't want to live with people with disability. We just wanted Alex to live with young people who would treat Alex like they would anyone else, but who had very similar values to him, because Alex is very clear about what defines him. And an example would be, he asked one of his, I think it was the first flatmates that came in as they were leaving, he just said, is it okay if I say my prayers at dinner? And that was really important. And if the young woman had felt uncomfortable, Alex would have known that straight away. And Alex, of course, no problem, of course. I'll say them too. So he's clear about that. Alex really wanted his freedom from me, because I'm a control freak, apparently. But I wanted my freedom and liberation from the caring role. And like, any couple of our age do expect all our kids to grow up and leave home. I always had that expectation. I always said they all had to be gone by 25, but they were allowed back for short periods only. And it's hugely liberating and free. Alex just expects to be, like everyone his age, and we just wanted him to be happy and not lonely. And he's not lonely, and he is happy. So our vision was for Alex to have a life that is defined by him, to be living independent of us, but a very integral part of our family. The same vision that we have for our other two children. My fear is being 80 and Alex at 50, and we're still living together. And that fear has been with me since he was it's not there anymore, when he was 6 months old, and I'd heard a story about a woman in the South Island who had committed suicide and murder-suicide situation. She was 80 and her son with Down syndrome was 50. And I thought, what world do we live in if that's what's happening? And it's never going to happen to our family. And I think I might have, planted some thoughts of, and what can I do about that as well? So it's not just, it's not just about our kids, it's also about us. But it's one thing having and holding a vision, it's actually, there's one, and keeping it, and being really clear, and it absolutely does help where we're going. We've never had to re-look at the vision, that's where we're heading. And it's always been great armour for negotiations. If at school things were going wrong, then I would go, well, how's it going to get us to our vision if we don't do such and such? And mainly, the vision kept us on track, and we knew what we would compromise on. Most of the time, though, I was probably uncompromising, and my husband would be a little bit more, Bridget, just giving a little. And I don't know, many of you may know, or probably know, Lorna Sullivan. I worked for Lorna for a number of years, and we've become, good friends. And So I always had her sitting there going, you know, making sure that we're doing the right things. So, which is also having good allies so around that too. And if we didn't have a vision for Alex, I knew the school would create one, or someone would create one that didn't look like the one that we wanted. And I think in our country at the moment, the government are trying to create ones for them, for our kids. The intentional networks, like I said, we've had 3, and with the long-term goal of having the young champs, which Alex has now put in place. So when Alex was 14, we put one together and a circle around us, and they were called Alex's Champs, now titled the Old Champs. But parallel to that, to address the issue of isolation and loneliness, his champs decided that he needed a circle of friends at school. So Alex and his brother put together, or chose, a circle of friends at school, and they were 14 and 15 at the time. The guys in that circle went on to become, all of them became prefects in year 17. So it's just interesting that, you know, Alex and Tim could identify good young men at such a young age. So he had his circle of friends, Alex's champs, and when he left home, the young champs, the people in his young champs are 2 of the guys who were on his circle of friends and who have just been friends with Alex. One of the guys was, someone that worked, 2 of them were some people that worked for Alex when he was young, used to help with his homework, and when they left, they said, hey, can we be on one of that, that group? Independently at 2 different times. And so they did. So slowly, I stepped backwards and these people took a greater role. The intentional network, they are the dream carriers. And if we were to sort of fall off the earth tomorrow, Gary and I know that they are there, they hold that vision for Alex and for his family. Now, I'm from a very big family. I have 8 siblings, and Gary's from a reasonably big family. They just don't have the same vision that we've held for Alex for the past 25 years. And, still say, I don't know why you do this, Bridget. You make it so hard. Well, it's actually really easy. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the intentional networks. Again, it's something that keeps cropping up. And it is absolutely the key element to what is making Alex's Alex's life. It holds it together. It sustains it. If he didn't have that circle, then I would undoubtedly be doing more for him, or we would need more paid supports. Now he would probably need more paid supports. The dream carriers certainly are people who celebrate Alex's achievements in life. They remind us about the ordinary things, of keeping things ordinary, and they give us a strong sense of belonging. They used to make us feel very strong, and you heard yesterday and saw how strong it keeps Alex. I'm just going to read, when Alex left home, I'm going to read this letter that he wrote to all the young people that he wanted to put this young champs together, and with the help of his personal assistant, Sarah. So Alex Ned and his family would like to invite you to join a supportive group of friends that will meet socially to find out what is going on in Alex's everyday life, talking about his present and future goals, discussing issues in good times, providing guidance and just having a good time together. The main purpose of the group, which Alex would like to call his Young Champs, is to have him greater social and community connections. It is about building on the relationships he currently has and supporting him to have a social life with people he likes and who have similar interests. Alex has thought of you because he values your opinion and ideas. He thinks you are a great friend with excellent attributes, smart, funny, good problem solver, to name a few, and will be an asset to Alex and his family when making decisions that will inspire and motivate the achievement of his goals. This position in the group of Young Champs is no more challenging than any other friendship and will be just as rewarding, if not more. You will know of Alex's giant heart, great kindness and happy spirit. He will give back double what he takes from you. Alex is asking for a commitment to meet once a month at a casual location where you can encourage a social being and help him to make strong friendships. And it went on. And he has that. Again, it's part of the key element that's actually kept this living arrangement together. Planning was really important. This was a path plan that we were engaged in. Alex would have been about 16 at the time. And by having the path, the champs, the older champs, that became the piece of the document that we were going to follow, so to speak. If we were to engage people in our lives, then we had the responsibility, Gary and I had the responsibility to listen to them. And so the path became that sort of the accountability document. He consequently had another planning document not long before he did leave home, an individual lifestyle plan that Lorna Sullivan had done. It was a very in-depth analysis of what motivated and who Alex was and what his interests and gifts and talents are, and where he needed support and how that was best delivered to him. Some of the safeguards that we've put around Alex is the neighbours. We moved out of our house, and you probably wondered, gosh, I can't do that. But it was a house that for some reason or another, when we bought it, we were developing the back section, and things went haywire, and we decided that we would sell the house. We couldn't. No one would buy it. I don't know why, and you throw things out there and you think, why can't we do something? Well, we soon realised why. It was because it was going to be Alex's house, because he had built up such strong relationships in that area where we had lived for many years, just a couple of streets down. So he got to know the neighbours, the local shopkeepers, just that whole community. His work colleagues are a part of that sort of safeguards. If he comes into work and not feeling great, greatest safeguard is his Young Champs. Alex has learned how to use that circle concept to his advantage, and to put questions if he's not sure of something. His flatmates, if they think, they're just wonderful people, but if they think there might be something wrong with Alex, they would more likely talk to and let Sarah know. I'm going to tell a little story about phone calls. When Alex was about 16, he got on the phone, used to ring up everyone, and I hated it. But it drove me insane. And anyway, He wasn't going to stop. And I said, fine, we're going to take it to the champs meeting, we're going to talk about it. And I, and whatever it is, I'm right and you're wrong. Took it to the champs meeting, and so they said to Alex, so what's the problem? No, they asked me, so what is the problem? I said, look, he's just ringing everyone up all the time, every single night. He could be on the phone for 2 hours to a whole pile of people. And they said to Alex, so what's the problem? He said, it's Mum's problem. And they said, we all agree, it is your problem, Bridget. So, however, he continued to make lots of phone calls when he was 21. He had, over 100 people at his birthday, and a lot of those people were his phone community. One of the things that we didn't focus on was around, when we set up Home for Alex, was the money. The money absolutely came last. We didn't focus on Alex being ready. He couldn't cook, he couldn't clean, he couldn't, all sorts. And we knew that if we thought about funding, then it probably wouldn't happen. The funding arrangements in New Zealand, we have individualised funding, and it's a package that you can purchase over for a 12-month period, but it's based on needs. And so we have used the funding to purchase the personal assistant element. So Sarah, because I'm family business, and Sarah is the service business. So Sarah has the relationship with any support. So, for example, the other day before we left, I noticed that Alex's room was quite dusty, and in fact really dusty. And I thought, no, actually, we're paying, I was feeling a bit grumpy. We're paying someone to do this. It shouldn't look like this. If I had spoken to Laura, I would have put that across, right? So I spoke to Sarah. I said, Sarah, will you let her know that it needs to be cleaned this week while I'm away, while Alex is away. So being, I said earlier on about that family governed thing, I don't want to manage because it's not a role I want to play. So we use the funding, we purchase the PA, we're about to purchase a cleaner, because Laura's going to, she'll continue, she's going to start flying internationally, so doesn't have the time as much to do meals and various other things. So I'll just get a cleaner in, and Sarah is going to figure out some way that we're going to, support Alex. And unpaid supports come from friends, and we're not paying someone to take Alex to church. There were one night a week the champs are having turns at cooking dinner with him. I'm not too sure what's happening with that. It's interesting that actually there's a lot of stuff in Alex's life I don't know about. And there's a lot of stuff in my son's life, other son's life and daughter's life I don't know about. And that's okay. So it also says the control freak in me is also prepared to let it go. So what we've learned is that we're just mum and dad. We've set up a house that's, ordinarily what would you do? We've learned to trust our instincts. We know when things aren't okay. Alex was very sick once, and we didn't know he was sick. He just rang Dad and said, Dad, I can't get warm. And Gary just said, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And brought him home, and he was really ill. We're good landlords. We don't start with the funding. We didn't fall into the readiness trap. And we ignored all the naysayers and the yes-butters. And we've been really prepared to do whatever it takes for Alex. Now, it wasn't a detailed, this is how you do it. because everyone's going to go off and do it however it best suits you. I knew that we had set up home for Alex when about 6 months ago, after having spent the weekend with us, he not only wanted to go home, but he walked in the door and I walked in the front door and I turned around and I looked at him and he just, he was at home. Yeah, that's it. Time.